There are basically 4 issues in each volume of Beautiful British Columbia, and they go by the seasons. So spring, you'll find, was they were all color coded, so spring was usually blue or green. Summer would be red, fall would be this orange yellow color, and winter would be red again. And these usually had some article themed around the season that it was featured in. In the spring issues, you would definitely find something about Okanagan, and this is because often you would talk about the spring blossoms, and that brings up very easily the image of the Okanagan orchard blossoms. So this is an article called A Many Splendored Spring, and in the introduction, one line reads, "Okanagan sunshine, never far away through all the year, turns up its thermostat to bask the land in warming brilliance." So this is a full spread image from Summerland with these blossoms. And the caption says, "Blossom time in Summerland." Here again, the top of this page says, "Spring is blossoms." And this is again all featuring the Okanagan. And I think here there are May Day celebrations in Parramatta. So this is again in Kelowna with the Ogopogo statue and sailing activities. And here we have, I think, water skiing. So that's 3 pages of this spring article focused on the Okanagan. After that, it does move on to other places as well, but Okanagan was always very heavily featured in the spring articles. This is the fall 1975 issue of the magazine. So at this point, they had an index at the back cover, so you can see what the main articles in the magazine are. Also here, there's the British Columbia Department of Travel Industry logo, which has the dogwood flower, which was the floral emblem of BC at that point. So the article we'll be looking at is Fruit of the Vine on page 34. Yeah, the 70s was when the wine industry in Okanagan really started taking off. So it is from these years that the magazine also featured a lot more articles on wineries in the Okanagan. So this is, I think, a typical Okanagan landscape scene. And you'll notice that it really carries the oasis aesthetic. There's this rich blue of the lake, and then the lush green that is really created by the wineries, not the native plants that used to exist before this. So here are some more photos of just the process of growing the grapes, and then harvesting, processing. And here you can see some people in lab coats, I think, testing the wine and tasting. And then finally, Okanagan wine.
Look at the magazines, holding them, the masthead, the colour stock, the layouts and so on. It just seems very familiar and kind of nostalgic for me.
When do you remember seeing the magazines?
I see. I feel as though they were kind of always around, always in the background, or there was, on a coffee table, or in stacks in basements. So probably kind of going on into the 80s, but really in the 70s.
Your family subscribed to them?
Yeah. Well, so my dad was a cultural attaché in London in the 70s, so he would have, among other things, been kind of trying to promote a particular this sort of vision of Canada and of British Columbia. But also my mum grew up in British Columbia in Vancouver, and so I'm sure she had a subscription which we would have received in Holland, in the Lebanon, in the UK.
Oh wow, okay.
So I know wherever we went, it felt as though there were these magazines that they were around. And so this sort of classic period seems very, very familiar to me. You have the I'm not sure what, I need to ask an expert what the colour stock is for the photography, but it has that very sort of the 70s colour balance look about it, and the layouts, the typefaces and stuff like that. This is very high production value stuff. This is at the time, this would have looked similar to magazines like Time and Newsweek that were really sort of illustrious. Those were the kind of top of the range. And this isn't a news magazine, obviously, but I think it does have some of that sort of flavour.